What is going on, everybody? It is NexusComplex, and today we're going to break down the Chicago Chandelures in our Game 7 matchup of the RPL Season 2. Phoenix is the coach. His team has been having a tough time thus far for the season, but that is not at all a reflection of the team members or his ability as a coach. Phoenix just kind of had some bad RNG and a few misplays. But just because his team is lower on the table right now does not mean that we can just overlook this, especially because we ourselves are on an 0-3 losing streak right now. So with this win, Phoenix could easily put himself in the top 8 in the playoff picture, and I could be down in the outside looking in going into this. So this is a big matchup. We need to get back into our winning ways. And looking at this team, they have some big time threats that could definitely change the complexion of a game. And the first Pokemon we're going to get into when talking about that is Excadrill. There's a reason Excadrill is one of the most popular Pokemon to be used in competitive, and has been since his release. All three of his abilities are pretty good, with Sand Rush, Sand Force, and Mold Breaker. Sand Rush doubles his speed in the sand. Sand Force, he gets a 33% boost of power in Sandstorm. And Mold Breaker, Pokemon's abilities don't affect anything during the battle. So if the Pokemon's got Levitate, he's going to hit it with an Earthquake. I'd say Mold Breaker is probably the most popular of the three abilities in singles. Excadrill, in terms of stats, is a physical attacker through and through. 135 base attack with 50 special attack. I don't see a world in which you run special attack Excadrill. His speed is 88, which is fast enough, but then you factor in Sand Rush, and he gets really quick, really fast during a Sandstorm. His HP is 110, which is fairly good, but his defenses are kind of paper thin, with 60 and 65 respectively. Excadrill's moves are pretty good too. So he gets Earthquake, which is stab, Iron Head, which is also stab. He gets Brick Break, so if you're going against a Pokemon like maybe Grimmsnarl or a Screen Setter, you can break down screens if you're worried about that. Shadow Claw, so you can hit Ghost types if you're, thinking about that. Bulldoze, which could lower a Pokemon's speed. X-Scissor, Poison Jab, Drill Run, and High Horsepower. They're also options if you want to go with stab moves. He also gets Slash and Submission. And the thing is, even though his defenses are not the best, if you throw a bunch of investment into one or the other, and then throw some HP on there and maybe some lefties, Excadrill can take some hits, and he can be just like a pivot. He's probably one of the fastest Stealth Rock setters, and one of the better Rapid Spinners. So that's one of the cool things with Excadrill is he can set rocks and get rid of rocks. And with a couple Rapid Spin boosts, Excadrill starts getting really fast really quickly. And it's possible, depending on the build, that if you get a Rapid Spin or two off on a team, you could sweep with Excadrill and Mold Breaker. But then you combine it with the second Pokemon on Phoenix's team, and it gets scary. So he also drafted Hippowdon, and this is team synergy at its finest. Hippowdon gets Sandstream. He also gets Sand Force, but, you want him to set the sand on this team for Excadrill instead of trying to use it himself. Hippowdon is also a physical attacker with 112 base attack. He also has 108 HP and 118 defense, so he can definitely take some physical hits. His special attack and special defense are lackluster at 68 and 72, and then his worst stat is his speed, but he's a hippopotamus. Hippowdon gets the access to the Fang moves, which we've talked about with other Pokemon before. So it gets Ice Fang, Fire Fang, and Thunder Fang, so it can do some elemental attacking. It also has access to Earthquake, as do most Pokemon, and it can do Double Edge. The thing about Double Edge is obviously it has recoil damage, but Hippowdon has Slack Off. So it could be one of those moves where if you need to take something down and you're not quite sure Earthquake, or maybe it resists ground or something like that, fire off a Double Edge and then try to slack off. He also gets Rock Slide, as do a lot of ground types. Facade, in case he gets burnt, which with physical attackers is always a concern. He can also do Bulldoze and Stomping Tantrum. He gets Iron Tail, which is bad accuracy, so you could run Iron Tail, Stomping Tantrum. He gets Crunched at Ghost types. Gets Superpower, which is very helpful. Iron Head and Stone Edge. He can also set rocks, and he has access to the move Heavy Slam. Hippowdon has some interesting moves in terms of boosting. He gets Stockpile, Swallow, Spit Up, and Curse. So Curse lowers his speed, which he doesn't have great speed anyways, ups his attack and defense. You could do something very similar to a Snorlax and run a Curse Hippowdon. Swallow, Stockpile, and Spit Up all work together. So you can either heal yourself, raise your defenses, or use those to hit somebody. And then he also gets Whirlwind. So if a Pokemon's setting up on you or you're worried about that, you can just Whirlwind it out. So Hibaldin and Excadrill have great synergy. They're going to be difficult to deal with if they get the sand up and Excadrill is moving quickly in the sand. Excadrill in the sand is always a threat to sweep a team, so you have to be ready for it. Next on the list is Rotom Heat. Rotom only has Levitate, and since it's Rotom Heat, it gets access to the move Overheat as its Fire-type move. It still has all the other electrical moves that Rotom gets, and access to Shadow Ball. Rotom can also trick and set up Sunny Day, Rain Dance, can Eerie Impulse, but generally, Rotom Heat is going to carry Nasty Plot, Overheat, Volt Switch, and possibly Trick. But Rotom Heat is definitely difficult to deal with in its own right with a 520 base stat total. Its worst stats are its HP and its attack, which is 50 and 65. But Rotom's not a physical attacker, so that's fine. It's got good defenses at 107 for both, and then 105 special attack and 86 speed, which is very manageable. I've seen a lot of bulky Rotom Heats, and they'll just do things like Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Eerie Impulse, Trick, just things to mess with the team. So Rotom Heat is definitely one of those Pokemon that can cause a lot of issues, and it can do several different things to you. You know, it could just be a straight up special attacker. It could be a pivot, do Volt Switch and get in, get out, kind of scout things out. And then also just status inflict. Paralysis and Burn can cripple a team very quickly. Next up is another very versatile Pokemon in Lucario. Lucario, in my opinion, is one of the premier mixed attackers. There's a reason Lucario is super popular. With 90 base speed, he's definitely quick. And then 110 attack and 115 special attack, Lucario can do either or. And it's got the movesets to back up a special attack and a physical attack. Its defenses and HP are all at 70, so it's not the bulkiest Pokemon, but the Steel typing gives it some resistances and gives it some longevity. And then the Fighting type also helps out a lot because there's a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Fighting type moves. Lucario's main special move would be Aura Sphere. He also gets Final Gambit. Utility, kill your Lucario off to try to kill something, you can do that. He gets Dragon Pulse, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, Flash Cannon. He also gets Vacuum Wave, what gives him some priority. He gets Steel Beam, so you can hurt yourself to do a bunch of special damage. And then on the physical side, Lucario, obviously being a fighting type, has access to Close Combat, Meteor Mash, Extreme Speed for priority, Ice Punch and Thunder Punch. He does not get Fire Punch. Rock Slide, Facade in case he gets burnt, Revenge, Brick Break, Drain Punch, which is also very good, Shadow Claw, Low Sweep if you want to attack something and drop its speed, Retaliate, Bulldoze again for speed control, gets Earthquake, Iron Tail, Crunch, Blaze Kick, Poison Jab, Zen Headbutt, Cross Chop, High Jump Kick, Bullet Punch. So Lucario has very good attack, and it has priorities too with E-Speed, Bullet Punch, Vacuum Wave. He can be a very good revenge killer to just come in there and pressure something that's low on HP and take it out. Lucario is one of those Pokemon that fits in really well anywhere as an attacker. You can run some bulk on him, but Lucario generally doesn't survive for too long. But I could see a bulky Lucario with Drain Punch or something like that having some play. Now, another one of my favorite Pokemon that still needs a Mega Evolution, damn it. Flygon is awesome. His shiny form is amazing. His only ability is Levitate, but as with a lot of the Dragon Pokemon, he can be a mixed attacker. He's better physically with 100 physical attack, but his 80 attack that's special is also very manageable, so you could do some damage with that. Flygon's best stat is his 100 speed, so he's pretty quick in the meta. He's ground dragon typing, so he's definitely really imposing offensively. Physically, he gets Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Crunch, Superpower, get Dragon Tail to switch things out, Dragon Rush. He gets Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. He does not get Ice Punch though. Gets access to Rock Slide, Steel Wing, U-Turn, so you can be a good U-turner. Breaking Swipe, which is a new attack in Gen 8 that is a Dragon type stab move that lowers the attack stats of the opposing Pokemon. Gets Superpower, Stone Edge, and Throat Chop. He has access to First Impression, so you can keep First Impression on him as a priority move on that first turn to try to get something back. And then specially, he's got some utility. He gets Bug Buzz, Earth Power, which is Stab, Uproar, which goes for 3 turns, Boom Burst. He gets access to Solar Beam, Fire Spin, so if you want to trap something in. He can also do Giga Drain, so if you catch like a Barbaracle or a Seismitoad, who just so happened to be on my team, Giga Drain could be a huge utility move to have. Air Slash, Flamethrower, Heat Wave, Dragon Pulse for stab, and he also gets Draco Meteor. I don't think he's as good as Lucario in terms of working both ways, but Flygon is definitely good enough that he could do either and really hurt a team. So Flygon is also a very good Pokemon, and one of the cooler Pokemon in the series, if I do say so myself. Next up is Roserade. So Roserade is Poison Grass. It generally is a good Pokemon to have to set up like Toxic Spikes and things like that. Its abilities are pretty good. So Natural Cure being probably the most useful, as if it gets a status itself, it's healed when you switch it out. But it also gets Technician. Base power 60 or less gets a 50% boost. It is definitely a special attacker with 55 more special attack than its actual attack. And it's got 105 special defense and 90 speed. So his team is definitely faster than mine overall, but it's not nearly as bad as it has been in the past for other teams in terms of their speed. It gets Sludge Bomb, which is stab, Shadow Ball, Uproar, Energy Ball, Leaf Storm, Dazzling Gleam, and Extra Sensory. So it's got some good moves there. I think you would go Natural Cure looking at the moves that get the Technician boost. Really the biggest one would be Magical Leaf, but you have other moves that are in the arsenal that already do as much damage. Roserade also being a poison type, if Toxic Spikes are on the field, you throw Roserade out there, it'll basically absorb them and the Toxic Spikes will be gone. So it's always nice to have a poison type for that. Yeah, with the 125 base attack and 90 speed and access to Toxic, Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, and the hard-hitting special attacking moves it can do, with a couple boosts and access to Synthesis to heal itself, Roserade can definitely hurt a team, and you have to potentially work around it, depending on the team you bring. Then we go from Roserade to Quagsire. Quagsire is one of the ground water types, has access to Water Absorb and Unaware, so the opposing Pokemon's stat modifications just get ignored, so it's basically a walking Darkest Lariat. But Water Absorb, I'd say, is probably the premier ability, because you can just absorb water and heal yourself. It is more of a physical attacker than a special attacker, but it can definitely do both. It is defensively bulky and it has 95 HP. Its special attack and special defense are only at 65, and it is a slow Pokemon at 35 base speed. It gets Slam, Aqua Tail, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Brick Break. It can do Dive. It gets access to Iron Tail and Stone Edge. It also gets Liquidation and High Horsepower. But honestly, a lot of the stuff the Quagsire does isn't always just physical attacking. So it can set up rain with Rain Dance. It can do Haze, so if someone's boosting it, just knock those away. It can Yawn to try to put other people to sleep or force switch outs. It gets Toxic. It can learn Safeguard, so protect your team from status conditions for 5 turns. It can also set Hail. It gets Eerie Impulse, so you can drop another opponent's special attack. It can use Encore, and then it also gets Curse, Recover, so it can heal itself. I feel like Quagsire always has a physical attack, so it's not just sitting there to get set up on, but generally Quagsire is more of a support Pokemon with Recovery. It can take some hits because it's bulky. With Water Absorb, you can switch into a water attack and heal yourself. Obviously, it's weak to grass, 4 times weak, so if you get hit with a grass move, you're probably dead. But Quagsire is a really good Pokemon, especially for the tier. It's like a budget Seismitoad or Gastrodon, except unlike Seismitoad, it actually gets Recovery. I like Seismitoad, but throughout this season, I'm kind of learning that since Seismitoad can't really reliably heal itself like Gastrodon and Quagsire can, it doesn't work as well as a defensive pivot, because it can only switch in so many times before it dies, and there's not many times you're going to get like access to a Drain Punch or a water move to heal yourself. But also Gastrodon and Quagsire can do the same things, and they get Recovery. Speaking of Pokemon that are really good for the tier that they're in, we go to Drifblim. One of the interesting abilities that it gets is Flare Boost. So if it gets burned, it gets a special attack increase, which is always kind of fun. So if you're worried about a Pokemon doing Will-O-Wisp, you predict a Will-O-Wisp, switch Drifblim in there, and that special stat gets boosted. And a 90 special attack, a boost to that would definitely be great. Drifblim has a ridiculous HP at 150. It's also got 80 physical attack and 90 special attack and 80 speed. Its defenses aren't great though at 44 and 54. Alright, so Drifblim can go either way. It can be a physical attacker or a special attacker. On the special side, it gets Psychic, Thunder, and Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Weather Ball, depending on the weather setup. X if a status condition has been induced, which is always nice to have for a ghost type if you think that some statuses might be getting spread around. And that is pretty much it from the special standpoint. From the physical standpoint, it gets Stab, Phantom Force. It can self-destruct and explode, which are always good to have in your back pocket. It also has access to Fly, Body Slam, and Giga Impact if you, for some reason, want to Giga Impact something. And then in terms of status, that is where Drifblim is really good. So it's a defog user, so it can clear hazards. It gets Haze, so it can get rid of stat boosts. It gets Trick, Will-O-Wisp, Strength Sap, which is very good to have because it just gives it a nice form of recovery. It also gets Stockpile Swallow and Spit Up, and then it gets Destiny Bond and Tailwind. So if you think you're going to go down, you can have Destiny Bond in your back pocket just to take something with you, or Tailwind if your last few Pokemon are pretty slow. You want to give them a speed boost. Tailwind is always good to try to set up. So I see Drifblim as more of a support Pokemon, but you have to be aware that Drifblim can hit you hard. It's not going to blow you away with its special attacking, but it's definitely enough of a threat that you can't just sit in on it and wait. Drifblim is difficult to deal with, and then having Strength Sap. So if a physical attacking Pokemon that can't really deal with Drifblim is in there, it's just going to own it. So we get into an Eviolite user in Clefairy. So Eviolite boosts a Pokemon's defense and special defense by 50% if they can evolve further. So Clefairy goes from having 48 defense to 72 defense, and from 65 special defense up to, I want to say, 97 or 98 special defense. So with the right investment in 70 HP, Clefairy can be a little difficult to get rid of. Clefairy's biggest benefit is Magic Guard. So it can only be damaged by direct type attacks. So it can't get hurt by Stealth Rocks, Spikes, Toxic, Burns, anything like that. Just pretends it never happened. Clefairy is much like Clefable, and it's generally used to be like a Cleric or a status Pokemon. It'll pass wishes off. Wish Teleport is pretty popular with Clefairy. It also has Soft Boiled, Thunder Wave. It can set screens. It doesn't really have the attacks to do something. You can have an attack on it just so it's not purely set up on. But Clefairy's not really an attacker. That's not really what its role is intended for. It has to have Eviolite to be viable. So Clefairy's kind of is what it is, you know. Set rocks and set statuses and heal its teammates. And that's what it's there to do. It's like a medic utility Pokemon. And last on the team is Malamar. Malamar is a Dark Psychic type with 86 HP, 92 attack, and 88 defense. It's got middling speed at 73 and 75 special defense, and its special attack is only 68. Malamar's got some interesting abilities. In Contrary, it's really good if you think there's going to be a Pokemon that's going to try to lower your attack stats or whatever stats because it just reverses them, but it can't boost itself if that's the case, which isn't terrible. It gets Suction Cups if you're afraid to be switched out, and then it gets Infiltrator, so it goes past Subs, Reflects, Light Screen, Safeguards, things like that. It's immune to Psychic types, being Dark. It's a physical attacker, so from the physical attacking side it gets Slash, Night Slash, Psycho Cut, Foul Play, which if you're going against a really strong physical attacker is good to have, gets Superpower, Rock Slide. It also gets Throat Chop and Liquidation. Even though it functions more as a physical attacker, it's definitely got some interesting special type attacks that, if you want to throw the investment in, could help your team out. So it gets Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, and Stab Psychic. It also gets Psyshock, Dark Pulse for Stab. Those are 4 or 5 good moves that you could use on a special attacking Malamar, but I just don't really see, unless you're really worried about it or want to catch someone off guard, you running the special Malamar. It can do screen support. It can also do Rain Dance and Sunny Day. It's a Trick Room setter. It also gets access to Calm Mind and Nasty Plot. So if you get in the right Pokemon, you can definitely just like boost yourself. So Malamar is a good physical attacker, utility support Pokemon, and it has the capability with some of the moves it has to be a special threat with the right investment. So you can't just always pin it down as being just a physical attacker because it does have some special moves that have some usability. So that's Malamar. Like I touched upon at the beginning, this is an important game for both Phoenix and I. Phoenix is trying to get back into the playoff hunt. I'm trying to salvage the season after going 0-3, so I need to get a win to keep going in the right direction. In terms of the team, I'm thinking Hippowdon and Excadrill just because they work so well together. Special attacking Lucario would make sense. Rotom Heat makes sense. Roserade would be good because I have you got to figure I'm probably being Barbaracle or Seismitoad. And then probably Quagsire or Clefairy or possibly Drifblim. Either Quagsire, Drifblim, or Clefairy will be the 6 Pokemon because they can take some hits and lend some utility to the team. So I think it's going to be Excadrill, Hippowdon, Rotom Heat, Lucario, Roserade, and Quagsire, Drifblim, or Clefairy in the 6th spot. That's what I think they're going to bring. So Phoenix brings Rotom Heat, Excadrill, Flygon, Clefairy, Roserade, and Drifblim. So I was wrong in the fact that I thought Lucario would be coming. And I thought Hippowdon would be coming for the Sand Rush. So not seeing Hippowdon was a big load off my mind because I kind of know now that like Excadrill is not going to be running Sand Rush, so that makes things a little bit more easy to deal with. I lead Salazzle, he goes Roserade. Kind of expected the switch, but I still had to overheat here just in case. It does pretty good damage to Flygon. I'll take that 40%. Going to Corviknight. I was expecting an Earthquake. He does U-turn. That's also fine. It does like no damage to me. Obviously here comes Rotom Heats. That's a no-go for your boy. You can play with Seismitoad. Gets the Nasty Plot, but there's not much that Rotom Heat can do, so he's going to switch out into Roserade. I'll do a Liquidation. 33% is pretty good, but we're not going to do that. Misses the Sleep Powder, which is huge, because if Salazzle would have went to sleep, Salazzle would have changed the game significantly. So I predict a switch, hit the Sludge Bomb, obviously Magic Guard, so it's not taking any damage. I was really hoping to get rid of the Clefairy here. It holds on with 12%. It's going to Wish, Protect, so it's going to live. But I've got no reason to not just keep hitting Sludge Bomb and keep the pressure on this thing. So I'm just going to keep hitting Sludge Bomb. Here comes Flygon. So it's going to take another 25%. So Flygon has been beaten up a little bit here just from getting switched in. Another U-turn to Corviknight. Corviknight's just kind of laughing at that. Out comes Rotom Heat again. But does the double switch into Excadrill. I'm okay with Seismitoad being there. Sets rocks. I was keeping the offensive pressure up. Hit the Drain Punch. Huge damage. And then Excadrill doesn't want to stay in, so now I set my rocks knowing that with the switch in I basically had a free turn. I predict the Will-O-Wisp, but I switch into a special attacker. It misses here, but you can burn Hydreigon. I'm fine with that. Clefairy comes out. I hit it with a Flamethrower. I'm assuming this thing has Moonblast, but I'm not sure, so I'd rather just not chance it. It teleports out. Back into Rotom Heat, who I can tell since he didn't take damage has to have the heavy duty boots. Roserade switches in, takes some damage. Good prediction on their part. I go out to Seismitoad. Nah, that's good. I was predicting a Sleep Powder, so there we go. I'm immune to it since I'm the Grass type with Delmice. Tried the Anchor Shot just to get rid of Roserade, but it got out, so Rotom Heat obviously checks Delmice pretty well, so right back into Seismitoad. Seismitoad is basically my answer to Rotom Heat. There's really not much Rotom Heat can do. Liquidation hits moderately well. Drifblim kind of eats it up. Go back into Hydreigon. I had Dark Pulse, so if this thing stayed in, I was just going to Dark Pulse it. Strength Sap, even though Hydreigon's a special attacker on this team, still, you know, it still has a high attack stat, so Drifblim's going to heal up. Like I said, I'm not sure about the Moonblast on Clefairy, but I didn't want to chance it. So it goes Wish, Protect. I'm trying to just get rid of the Eviolite at this point, because if I get rid of the Eviolite, Clefairy is basically done. It can still heal, but it's not going to take another good sludge bomb or anything like that. Go into Delmice. Here comes Roserade. The Wish is huge because I hit with an Anchor Shot here. And this Anchor Shot does massive damage after the Life Orb. So 91% down to 3%. So that Anchor Shot was huge. But I don't want to lose Delmice yet because he's my Rapid Spinner. So I'm going to go back into Salazzle. Good prediction. The Giga Drain happens. I could have stayed in and probably killed, but it's fine. Here comes Excadrill. I just went Overheat because I thought if he predicted Sludge Bomb, then Excadrill could switch in fine and maybe Rapid Spin. I'm glad that I did because now Excadrill's gone, which was a pretty big defensive pivot. I'm Choice Scarf, so that's why I switch out of Salazzle there. Go into Corviknight. So Clefairy's going to teleport out. In comes Drifblim. I'm expecting the Will-O-Wisp on Corviknight, so I'm going to switch into Hydreigon. He can take the burn and still live, although it does add a timer now to his health because he's just going to take that burn damage every turn. So Hydreigon's now on a limited play count. I just Dark Pulse, thinking maybe Drifblim will stay in. Clefairy goes down to 47%, and like I said, I don't want to lose Hydreigon yet, so I'll go into Delmice. Clefairy does the Wish. I could have synthesized here, but I was like, you know, let's get rid of these rocks. They're causing me issues. That's pretty much what Delmice had. Excadrill was his rock setter, so it was a good time to get rid of him. Rotom Heat gets the Wish. Switches right back out into Drifblim. I did not have Shadow Claw, so here comes Seismitoad. Again, I was expecting a burn, so I switched into Hydreigon. He defogs to get rid of the rocks, which was good for him. He probably expected the switch into Hydreigon to stop the burn. This Dark Pulse hits Rotom very hard, making it down to 38%, but I'm definitely in range to die here. So I switch out. Terrible matchup for me, Roserade versus Seismitoad. So I'll go back into Delmice. Good call, get the Sleep Powder. But I know I will die if I stay in on a Sludge Bomb. So I try to be cute, switch into Corviknight. Corviknight now gets put to sleep. I'm not going to stay out with this, so obviously I'm going to switch back into Salazzle. He gets out. I went Sludge Bomb, so we get rid of Clefairy. So now the healing from Wish is gone. And so now his Pokemon are on a little bit more of a timer. I predict the Earthquake, so I go Levitate. It winds up being Dragon Claw, which also works out. Which I didn't realize how well Gardevoir with Trace checked Flygon. Because with Levitate, it gets immune to the ground type attacks, and it's already immune to Dragon types. So Gardevoir poses a lot of problems to Flygon. Now I'm just kind of Moonblasting. His team's a little beat up. There's no healing there. The U-turn was big. We get Drifblim here, but Flygon was really the one that was posing the most problems at this point. So Gardevoir's in a pretty good spot to just kind of Moonblast. I was expecting another U-turn, so I go into Greybeard. Winds up working out because it's an Earthquake. But if I would have just stayed in, I forgot I had Levitate, and I was fine. Like, Gardevoir was fine. I could have won 6-0 if I just would have stayed in with Gardevoir. So, playing around the Earthquake. Trying to get the switch to Rotom. So Rotom comes in. I hit Surf. So now Rotom is gone. So now Flygon is the last Pokemon left on the other side. Like I said, I just kind of forgot about Levitate and U-turn. So he goes Outrage just to get rid of something. He kills Salazzle. I go Gardevoir. That's the end of the game now because Gardevoir is immune to Dragon types. Easily click Moonblast, get the hit, and the win. So there we go. Back in the win column for the week, we're now sitting at 4-3. We have the Bayern Munchlax left this week. Hopefully we can go to 5-3, but that team is no joke either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The trade windows. Not a lot of action has happened yet with the trades. I'm expecting a lot of roster upheaval here in the next couple days as we close in on the playoffs. So that'll change things up significantly, and I guess I've got to look at roster moves myself to try to keep pace and see if there's anything that I'd like to get rid of. Barbarical is probably number one on the chopping block at this point, honestly. But yeah, that's it. Big shout outs to Phoenix. That was a good game. The final score doesn't reflect it, but I really had to think and make some good moves. It really made me work for it. And I would not be surprised to see the Chicago Chandelures turn it around and make their way into the playoffs, because that is a solid team. Thank you guys for joining me for this game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the next one.